Hari Om. We are now on section 2 of chapter 1. The 6th and 7th mantra will be taken up together because it is a continuation. The mantras read like this. 6th one, Tasmat Richa Samayajushim Diksha Yajnascha Sarve Kradavo Dakshinascha Samvatsarascha Yajamanascha Loka Somo Yatra Pavade Yatra Surya. The 7th one says, Tasmacha Deva Bahula Samprasuta Sadhya Manushya Pravasho Ayamsi Pranapanau Vrihayavo Tapascha Shraddha Satyam Brahmacharyam Vidhischa. Once again, the Rishi is continuing to catalogue the products that emerged out of the Purusha. And he enumerates them in great detail, how each of these grosser things have emerged from their subtle forms. When we say gross and subtle in Vedanta, please understand that the subtlety is measured by pervasiveness. Greater the pervasiveness of an object, greater its subtlety. Lesser its pervasiveness, grosser it is. Let us take the example of a block of ice. Now it has a definite form, a shape, and occupies a limited, defined space. We call that as the gross. For example, so if that block of ice is melted and forms into water, the water so formed from the ice pervades greater space than the block of ice, meaning it has greater pervasiveness than the ice block. Water has greater pervasiveness than the ice block because it pervades for a larger space. Therefore, in Vedanta we say water is subtler than ice. Or the ice is grosser than the water. Now again, if the water is evaporated and forms as vapor, it occupies greater space and hence greater pervasiveness. Therefore, in the language of Vedanta, in this example, the vapor is the subtlest, water is grosser than the vapor, but subtler than the ice block, and the ice block is the grossest. I hope I have made it clear. Subtlety is therefore measured in terms of its pervasiveness. The all-pervading Purusha is therefore the subtlest or if you can call it the subtler than the subtlest. There is no space to pervade. There is no other space to pervade. So that is the maximum pervasiveness, and therefore it is the highest subtle matter, subtler than the subtlest. So you will see that all these manifestations are from the subtlest Atman, the self, the supreme, the reality, comes down to the grossest, the gross body that you and I possess. Now look, within ourselves, the body is the grossest. The mind is subtler than the body. The intellect is subtler than the mind. The vasanas are subtler than the intellect. The Virat is subtler than the Vishwa, and the Purusha is subtler than Virat, which is the subtlest. So as it has greater pervasiveness, as the pervasiveness is greater and greater, the object becomes subtler and subtler. Now for a moment, please don't think that the Purusha is something whose pervasiveness can be measured. No, it is immeasurable. Therefore it is the subtlest. You can measure everything up to Purusha. Beyond that, you cannot measure. That is why it is called, in a language that can make us understand, subtler than the subtlest. Mahato Mahiyan. For the sake of enumerating the two mantras, they elaborately list out the manifestations that has come from Purusha. Just for your ready understanding, the following are the list of creations that emerged from him, the reality. The mantras say that from the Purusha emerged the following. What are they? The Vedic verses, the sacred chants, the sacrificial yajna formula, preliminary rites, sacrifices and ceremonies, sacrificial gifts, timings of sacrifices, sacrifices itself, the works that are purified by the sun and the moon, the various devatas, the illuminators, the celestials, the men, the cattle, the birds, the inhalation and exhalation in us, the corn and barley, the vegetable, the cereals, our thoughts, the feeling of devotion, truth, self-control, values of life, etc., etc. So all things and beings that we see, all objects, emotions and thoughts, the entire world of OET, all the objects in the world, all the emotions in the world, all the thoughts in the world are nothing but the manifestations from him, the reality. Are you amazed at the list? Yes, you will be. Look at the exhaustive way by which the rishis describe the process of creation. These lists together make up our own world of things and beings that we see around us. The list in the first mantra from Vedic verses to actions purified by the sun and moon, the first mantra, first is the Vedic verses. From the Vedic verses to, in the first mantra, actions purified by the sun and moon constitute and represent the entire world of action around us. All activities of the world. The first mantra culminates to say that the actions purified by the sun and the moon, we ourselves by our own actions creates the field of activities in which we live and accumulate our experiences. Think. We ourselves by our own actions we create the field of activities in and around us in which we live and also accumulate the experiences born out of our actions. We saw earlier that how the sun and the moon influence our actions and that govern our experiences of our planet, on this planet. In the second mantra, that is stanza 6, the Rishi maintains the sequence of creations and at all times emphasizing the emphasizing and maintaining, let us say, and maintaining that every little created creature, its experience and activities have all spring from him. The Purusha. A noteworthy point to be mentioned here is that after mentioning that the corn and barley have emerged from the Purusha, the Rishi next says that thought and devotion emerged. How is corn and barley connected with thought and devotion? Let me try to explain the logic of this sequence. Corn and barley surely stand for food. They represent food. It is well known that our food nourishes our thought. Our thoughts are greatly influenced by the type of food we take. Sattvic food, sattvic thoughts. Rajasic food, rajasic thoughts. Tamasic food, tamasic thoughts. So as is your food, so are your thoughts. Therefore, thought is subtler than the food. The thought that is created by the food has greater pervasiveness than the finite, limited food. Therefore, thoughts are subtler than the food. Therefore, it is proper and appropriate that the thoughts come from the food, meaning from the barley and corn. The logic is therefore perfect. The next in the list is devotion. Devotion is that state of mind which precedes the mental calm and belief in a future, in a future state of all human endeavors. Therefore, the raw thoughts generated by the type of food intake is refined to take a positive direction to achieve a calm and perfect life. Not perfect life, peaceful life. Okay. Therefore, the feeling of devotion is certainly subtler than the raw thoughts. What a perfect logic of the rishis. Ultimately, remember, everything emerged from the ultimate Purusha, the one without a second. Before concluding today's presentation, I must share with you a thought that has just come to my mind as I was speaking to you. In the 4th or the 5th standard at my school, we had a book called The Desk Work. In that book, there was a poem which suddenly came to my mind. The title of the poem was, if I remember right, The Good God Made Them All. I don't remember the verses right away, but I can refresh it and tell you tomorrow. But I know for sure that it starts by saying, all things bright and beautiful, all things great and small, all things good and wonderful, the good God made them all. The poem tries to say that, or confirms by saying that everything that you see in the world, big or small, beauty or ugly, whatever it is all made by good God. So made by the good God mean it has emerged from the God principle, from the Purusha in the language of the Upanishads. And that's it for today. We will see tomorrow what the next mantra is. Hari Om.